Hi everybody, let me know when you can see and of course indeed hear me. We're going to start right on time today because where we are just by the first of these, it shuts. Hello there. So hello Ronnie, Cynthia, Leslie, Fran. So I'm going to start kind of nowish actually because these gardens close at 5, so just so we've got the opportunity to see, and of course those that join late can always look again. So the first of our sculptures today, we're on the Watchers of York. Thank you, Janie. And the Watchers are clearly it's a new trail, so it's a usual kind of business district, make it York kind of thing, all about getting people out and around town, exploring, bringing them to places they might otherwise not come across. And like some of the previous ones that we've done, tansy beetles and a variety of other kind of trails. Each one, we've done the Christmas ones. What do you call the Christmas guys? I can't think what you call them now. But you know, the German, the nutcrackers. So each one is individually kind of designed. This is the garden guardian, the protector of growing things and of ancient stone. So I thought we'd just kick straight off. And hello, Carolyn. And bring in, so again, they're sort of a fiberglass, I would guess, kind of material. Yeah. Hollow, obviously, otherwise they'd be incredibly heavy to carry. But very colourful, and each one, of course, individual. So we've done a number of these trails. And hello, Singing Cheryl. So that's today, and we're going to talk about really some of the history and the ideas and the meanings behind gargoyles, which of course have inspired these. And we'll try and capture one or two of them on the Minster as we kind of walk around. But I thought we'd kind of start here in the garden. So the artist here is somebody called Rue Robinson. I'm not entirely familiar with that name, but it is lovely, isn't it? Yeah, so just in case the colours aren't coming through exactly, it's a very kind of pale pink with sort of quite a deep green and a just off kind of scarlet kind of red. So it's a very nice kind of ensemble. Works very well. Oh, losing the gimbal, which is doesn't bode well for this point of the tour, but let me just turn off and turn back on again. So don't worry, we'll try and get the gimbal back, but what I've learnt is you can't unplug the cable, which is what you want to do, and there we go. So hopefully that will give us the gimbal back now. So yeah, so it is very pretty, isn't it? So I'll just kind of give you a 360, as you might say, and then we'll be on our way, and we'll start talking, as I say, about all things gargoyle. So yeah, they're great. I mean, I think they're probably more interesting. Yes, it's playing Held My Gimbal. It's like the ones, you know, in what's that film? Ghostbusters. You know, up at the top of the building there, they kind of come to life and play havoc. So I think that's what's going on. Hello, David. Good to have you on board. So as you can see down here, we've got a bunch of the sponsors. We've got to give them a little shout out. Minster Fabrication, York Mumbler, Swittle Priors, lawyers, I think, City Cruisers, York Bid, and the Potions Cauldron for kindly sponsoring this of our entertainment today. So just in case you weren't kind of aware, I'll kind of pan back so you can see where it is that we are. We're just behind kind of Multangular Tower here, so in Museum Gardens. I'm going to walk out the gardens to head out. Hello, Tish. So there we are, there's a nice shot. I'll try and get a nice kind of shot in situ, but obviously I try not to film people as well and children because they are wont to be around with these rather impressive sculptures. So there we go. So let's have a kind of wander through. I'll have a drink and we'll be on our way, and then we will go. I think we're going to see about another 10 of these over the hour. So there's plenty to see, but we're going to go out this way because they've locked the gates behind us. Wouldn't be the first time I've been locked in, so I've become a bit savvy to that now. So there he is looking from the other side. So we've got the York Library right next to us, fabulous central library, and archives, of course. And there we go. So they'll say that the idea of these trails really is obviously it's a free resource, which is great. So obviously families, people on a budget can come out, and I think it gives the kids something to be interested in. They get a bit stalled, you know, going from shop to shop. So it's something to look at in the meantime. And a little squirrel there for our travels. Oh, we can get this way. This is great. I wasn't sure if we're about to get through this gate, so we can go right here to the around to the theatre where the next one is. So in architecture, and sort of specifically Gothic architecture, a gargoyle is a carved or a formed grotesque with a spout, designed to convey water from a roof and over the side of the building, thereby preventing it running down the masonry walls and eroding the mortar in between. So if you ever wondered, we're going to talk about the kind of meanings and the symbolism, but from a kind of sheer architectural purpose, That's what they're about, by sort of throwing the water outwards, stops it running down and kind of eroding the problem, eroding both the mortar but also the foundations. You've got constantly water running down the side of an old building. It's going to kind of create problems. So there is an architectural purpose for a gargoyle. A grotesque is different. I'm going to cover that slightly different. I'll use the terms interchangeably in describing them, but a gargoyle is a kind of waterspout. So it is an architectural tool. So architects often use multiple gargoyles, building a kind of road to divide a flow of rainwater off the roof to minimise potential damage and rainstorms. So when we're going past the Minster, you can have a look at this. You'll see, every few metres the gargoyles, and it's just distribution channels for the rainwater to kind of minimise the damage, really. So often there's a trough cut in the back of the gargoyle, and the rainwater typically exits through the open mouth. So I'm not sure, to how many of you that's news, or obviously you kind of knew that, but I thought it was kind of worth starting out and pointing out what they are before we kind of talk about, obviously, the meanings and the various artworks and how they kind of evolved, over time. So they're usually kind of elongated, sort of fantastical animals, because their kind of length determines how far water is directed out from the wall. So when garlic flying butchers were used, so remember, we cover a lot of these terms just to kind of remind you what a buttress was. Before buttresses, basically, all you had was the walls to hold up. So the higher you went up, the thicker the walls had to be, in other words, to carry the weight. But it got to a stage where they become unstable, because obviously you've got so much stone in the sky. In a cathedral, it limits how high you can go. So the buttress was like an exoskeleton, basically almost like kind of like tent. What do you call those? Not the poles so much as the guy ropes. The guy ropes in a tent, like that. So it's kind of holding it all in place from the outside. And so, once you've got the kind of buttresses in, these, well, they sort of cut into the buttresses and throw the water out kind of even further. So the idea doesn't begin in the medieval period, it's much older. You've got ancient Egyptians, Greeks, Etruscans and Romans all used this kind of feature, these animal-shaped waterspouts. But it's really in the 12th century that they kind of begin to take this sort of modern form, the form that we must associate them with is in the kind of 12th century, and it's with the explosion of kind of cathedral building. And I'm just going to try to cross the road without getting run over. We're going to have a look at our second one, and then we'll talk about this kind of explosion. The 12th century, when we say the 12th century, obviously the 1100s, that's when everything kind of really starts to kind of get big style. And we see the Gothic sort of comes in. But before we do, let's have a look at our second of the. So this is the Theatre Royal, Yorkshire sort of producing theatre. We've got more than one place where you can see productions, but this is a producing theatre. In other words, they don't just bring in plays and performances from elsewhere. They kind of write and support kind of local talent here. So it's what we call producing theatre. So this one is fantastic. I love this. This is the Watcher of the Night, and each one has kind of got a theme and or a byline, as you might say. And this is the watching over York streets when night falls. So everything. It is one of the things. I mean, I've been coming here for many, many years. Not so much recently. I must hasten to add, but used to all the time. We were theatre club members when I was a kid, so we used to come and see all the first nights. But yes, so we've got evening scenes here. But aren't they lovely? It is a lovely blue tongue, isn't it? It looks like it's been what do you call them? Slushies. A raspberry slushy, I think, to get a tongue of that. Because it reminds me of my kids would always have the raspberry slushies. It's bright blue for some reason. And they look a bit like varicose veins to me, but I'm guessing they are plants, so they're kind of growing over its feet. And of course, like being back in Whitby, isn't it? We've got some very Gothic bats over here. So yeah, and you can own these should you wish it. There'll be an auction like there was with the various the book trail as well. That's Snooks, wasn't it? That's another one we did. You can bid for these and have it in York. So quite a few businesses around York now have kind of got these in various beer gardens or inside restaurants and so forth. A talking point, as you might say. Like this one. So do keep a tally. Be thinking out which is your favourite that you've seen so far. I mean, obviously this one is highly decorated by comparison. The other one was more of a sort of simple design, wasn't it? But blue beard and blue tongue, absolutely, Susan. Yeah, maybe that's kind of what they're getting at here. But I thought varicose veins as well. But I thought, is it being miserable to say that? Oh no, we've got a Minster on the back. I hadn't seen that. They in Houston they do cows art. Well, there we go, Ruben. You see, wherever you are, and remember Alex in Australia used to take us to Melbourne, wasn't it? The whatever those things were called. I can't remember what they were called now. But you know, everybody, and Ian's taken us to see, I can't remember what they are, in Birmingham. Bulls, isn't it, in Birmingham, I think. So, you know, I think they're kind of popular now, these things, aren't they? You know, it's kind of a well-renowned art form. So, yeah, so we've got the explosion, if you like, of kind of gargoyles is really kind of, with this kind of huge explosion of kind of Christianity in the 11th and 12th century, the kind of Catholic Church is growing stronger and converting many more people. But at the same time, it's worth remembering that at the same time of a drink, that most people were illiterate. So really, you know, this is the difficulty, you know, of getting across. Happy birthday in advance, Julie. The difficulty of obviously bringing on board large numbers of, you know, into congregations, but they are then illiterate. It means that signs and symbols, imagery, is very, very important. You know, you need to get across. Hence, you know, statues, stained glass, all these things, you know, become incredibly useful in underlining kind of messages. The messages and the stories are simple, stories from the Bible, but you've got to underline them. So use visual representations. So, images kind of very, very important in this medieval period. And many early gargoyles depicted some version of a dragon. It started in France, but almost everything starts in France that arrives here, because of course we then get the Norman conquest. William the Conqueror comes across with the Normans in the sort of second half, isn't it, of the 11th century, and we become a vassal of the French state, really. So all those French influences, they come over. The churchmen, the archbishops, they all come from France. The monks, they come from France. So of course they just bring the patterns for building, but also the thinking behind it. So as well as serving as kind of waterspouts, the gaping mouths of gargoyles often evoke the fearful destructiveness of these legendary beasts of dragons, reminding the laity. Ooh, that's noisy. So reminding the laity, in other words, the congregations, of the need for church protection. And York Minster, I'd like to get in on the act, so I've got a few pictures I'm going to share with you as we kind of go along. It's got its very own dragon. So again, this is kind of following in this kind of French tradition. So here is, just give me a minute to find it. So that is one of the gargoyles on York Minster, being taken obviously by a very powerful camera. But it's kind of following the tradition. And obviously, as you can see there, it's kind of elongated outwards with the kind of dragon snout. So the dragon was a very, very kind of popular motif in the medieval period. The idea that the church was going to protect you. But of course, the idea that people needed protection of the church is hardly new. And we can see in York, using stone carvings to instill fear in the laity predates the arrival of Gothic and the gargoyles. Now the cathedral built here between 1080 and 1100. And again, I'll bring up an image. You can sort of see the footprint of the Minster. There we go, so put that for you. So there is the Norman or Romanesque style Minster in the middle, and there is the footprint on the outline, which is the shape of the contemporary Minster, medieval Minster, however you want to call it. So consequently, as you can see, the bigger Minster, the newer Minster, is larger, but actually it's sat upon the foundations of the old Minster. So that if you go down into the underpart, the crypt, the undercroft, as it's known, you basically get to see an awful lot. I can't take you down there now. If it is, there'll be no internet signal. But you'd see basically. And what's down there, kind of really interesting, sitting in the crypt underneath the altar, is something called the Doomstone. It's one of York's really strangest of the statues and monuments, and very much sort of setting this going forward. So let me just bring that up for you. So here is. Let's see what we're going to look at the gargoyle here, and then I'll tell you about the Doomstone. Because there's another one I think is just around this corner. So has anybody been to the Undercroft? It's underneath the Minster. You pay. It's like a separate museum. Well, it may be involved. It may be in your whole ticket now. I'm not entirely sure, but you obviously have to pay to get in. But it's basically a museum underneath the Minster, And it basically, it's a way of looking at all the pillars and columns and so forth that still exist from the original, from the Norman Minster. So this one, of course, has been done to resemble stained glass. It's called the Keeper of Coloured Light. The Keeper of Light that's held in the ancient glass. And light, of course, very, very important motif in the church. I am the light of the world. Candles, candle light, of course, all these kind of ideas. And of course, stained glass were all about, weren't they, expressing light, capturing light. And for people that lived in kind of dark, murky, smoky houses from the fires, not from cigarette smoke, then obviously going to church and being bathed in this colour and this light, you know, was very much a kind of, you think, yeah, the bells are ringing, it's nice, isn't it? So it is gorgeous, isn't it, Fran? This is it is really rather wonderful. I think it's been really well done. I'm going to go as far as that. This so far, this is my favourite trail. Not you know, in terms of like the tansies and the snooks and the various ones that I've taken you on. I'm liking the aesthetic of these watches more and more. Appreciate atmosphere, which is right. Oh, fabulous, Ruben. You must write about us. And write about the fabulous virtual tours. You don't have to go to York. You need to be tuning to me and be there wherever you are, whatever you're doing. So they do look a bit like dogs, though. That's the only thing that I would say. The faces. I don't know if that is deliberate. Women, witches, and warriors. Yeah, you can hear the bells. Oh, Jane can hear them from home. So Jane can hear weird kind of delayed stereo then. She can hear them with her window open, living in York, but obviously hear them to me as well. So a slight delay. You're probably getting about 10, 12 second delay from where I'm talking to where you're receiving it, Janie. So you're going to get a slightly weird stereo effect there, but nonetheless. So there we go. Very nice, I like this one. So, so has anybody heard or seen of the Doomstone? Because it is a fantastic. Oh, look at this! Look at that. There's a horse. Now then, let me think. Why would there be a horse on there in the light? Nothing is springing to mind. If anybody's got ideas why there would be a horse, do let me know. Can't think what's to do with stained glass. They do resemble dog face, don't they? So yeah, the Doomstone, which is, as I say, if you go into the Minster and you kind of go below, you know, obviously where the front is now, there is this sort of really sinister carving. Let me just bring up the kind of the first. I've got a few images of it. This to kind of give you a sense. It's a depiction of hell. It depicts a cauldron and 3 mouths of hell into which souls of the damned are being pushed and tortured by kind of fearsome demons. Could be the horse of his pockets, wouldn't it? Let me find you another image of that. That'll maybe give you a bit more. Yeah, you still see the kind of currying the cauldrons there. So cauldron is meant to represent one of the mouths of hell and to act as a warning to people as to what might happen if they act in an ungodly manner. Now, above the cauldron, there is a man carrying 2 bags of money. Let's see if we can get you another image. That's probably a good one. Let's get rid of you. There. Yeah. That's a better vision. Yeah, so you see the 2 bags there in the middle? Meant to show greed as well as there's a figure of a well-dressed woman depicting the sin of lust, and there's also toads underneath. And they were seen as kind of mystical dark creatures in Norman times with toads. And beneath the cauldron, you've got 2 demons who are supporting the cauldron. Again, let me get that one off. And then, so this is the demons supporting the cauldron. And it's holding the cauldron over a tortured soul in flames. So during this kind of times, the church was not shy when it kind of came to trying to scare the congregation to behave in a kind of Christianly way. It's like behave or else, really. See the bags? Yeah, absolutely. So let me just give you one last shot of that. It gives you a sort of sense of what it looks like. Obviously, it's in a column and so cylindrical. But so dark, you know, that they kind of really just didn't, you know, worry about scaring young children like that. It was really kind of, this is what hell looks like. It's a literal representation of hell, and you better get your head around it, because if you don't, this is where you're going to go for all eternity. So let's just get rid of you and just pan up a minute, and let's show you best we can. obviously on a virtual tour we can't go in for mega detail, but just start to look at how many of these that we can see. And again, I'll give them too high because it's easier actually to sort of stand on the corner and see them because they kind of stick out. So let me just come around here. So you can see you've got there's two in your picture there. In fact, there's probably about 5 or 6 in your picture there. Now kind of coming across. Yeah, so if you're at a sort of slight angle like I am now, you can see they protrude. You get a better sense of kind of what they look like. Sandy knows all about fire and brimstone, does she? That's what you're taught, is it? Catholics are very, very good at that sort of thing. So let me just come back off the zoom because it does get a bit difficult to control the camera. So the emergence of gargoyles on buildings was a very kind of established practice. What it was doing was obviously combining engineering solutions that already knew worked, which has of course got the management of water in buildings, but then this terrifying people was just like a new way of thinking about what you could do with once you've got your gargoyle up there, you might as well earn its keep, as you might say, by scaring people at the same time. So we've got some more over here. We'll just pan across those. And obviously it wasn't universally welcome. In fact, St Bernard of Clairvaux, you may have heard of, very, very influential Cistercian monk. He really disapproved of this stuff. I mean, for a start, they liked plain, unadorned. So when we go to places like Byland Abbey and a lot of the monasteries in North Yorkshire, they're much plainer than the Minster because they didn't believe in all this kind of design, they felt it was fluff, as you might say, a bit like some marshmallows and all that sort of stuff you want for hot chocolate. You don't need it, right? Just have the hot chocolate, it'll do its job. So that was kind of their sort of thinking, really, about church. So Bernard Clairvaux was a very much an outspoken, but he was a voice. He was very influential in most things to do with the church, but in this he was kind of roundly ignored because almost every cathedral, including York Minster, really embraced gargoyles in a big way. And so, despite the fact that you think, why would you be portraying demons and horrible, grotesque things on the outsides of buildings? Well, the key is you put them on the outside because you don't want them on the inside. So to a degree, they're there to scare away spirits, because we're talking about a time, of course, where people fervently believed the devil and his spirits and sprites and all these kind of terrible little things that the devil could kind of throw at you to everything to make you ill, poison water and so forth. So it was to keep them away from churches. But the reason that so many of the gargoyles ended up sort of resembling monsters comes back to a story, because there's usually often a founding story within this, and this story takes place in the 7th century. It's been retold kind of many times in the last sort of 1400 years, and so consequently it has taken on many forms, but essentially it's about a place which is now Rouen. We've been to Rouen in Normandy, beautiful medieval city, and thank you, Lizzie, and it's where the River Seine kind of snakes through the land, and as I say, it's now the location of the modern city of Rouen, but we're talking about the 7th century. And a fearsome monster had taken up residence in the marshes along the banks of the River Seine. And he looked like your normal kind of garden variety serpent dragon, but he was a bit different because instead of breathing out of his fire out of his mouth, like most dragons, he belched out water. Okay, so he's a bit different. And he's causing havoc along the river. He was sinking ships, eating passengers, eating people, and animals. Basically, he would kind of drown you and eat you. So anyone in his path, he's going to eat. And of course, this causes great fear, great consternation in the city. So the city leaders kind of brokered a deal with him and said, okay, you can have one person a year to eat. And the monster about those was named La Gargouille. And so he demanded thank you very much, he demanded one human from the town each year. And this kind of supplemented his diet of cattle and sheep and sailors and those who dared to cross his territory. Now, he put in a request for a young virgin, but it doesn't seem like that anybody we took him kind of too seriously. But he thought, how's he going to tell the difference? So instead, the townspeople decided to give him a prisoner that had been sentenced to death, on the basis that the prisoner was still going to die, and the monster's not really going to care. And the monster just gobbled them up, really, without even kind of noticing. Thank you very much. from. So we'll come up here, we've got some more gargoyles. So the people of Rouen are kind of gripped by fear and afraid to venture outside the city walls. And then a young father, a young Catholic priest named Romain, arrived in the town. He's kind of full of enthusiasm and faith, and he felt sure he could deliver the townspeople from their tormentor. So when the day came to feed the dragon his annual human sacrifice, brave Father Romain and a kind of rather nervous prisoner, as you might imagine, head towards the marsh where La Gargouille lived. And the prisoner would be used as bait to lure out the monster. And if all went well, the priest captured him, and the prisoner was promised a pardon. So here's flying butchers, by the way, sticking out to bits. And you can see flying butchers with gargoyles stuck out. There we go. So as the faithful priest and the faithful prisoner approached La Gargoyle's lair, the dragon lumbered out to meet them, licking his lips and thinking that he was getting 2 meals this year. And he was kind of big and ugly with thick grey-green skin. And he had wings like a bat, a long serpent-like body, and 2 webbed feet. His neck was long and scaly, and his eyes glowed like luminescent moonstones. And as he approached, the men could smell his foul breath. And just as he's ready to lunge at the prisoner, Father Romain pulled out his secret weapon, a large solid gold cross that had been holding behind his back. As the light hit the cross and reflected the monster's eyes, he was immediately subdued and knelt down at the priest's feet. We'll walk on. The convict, who was holding the holy man's long scarf, gingerly tied it around the animal's neck. Then the 3 unlikely companions started to march back into the city. The priest leading the dragon on a leash, and a happy but still somewhat nervous criminal. Again, you get them all up here, so keeping on this zoom. It's lovely weather, isn't it? Yeah. And when they arrived at the city wall, the people were amazed and terrified that the priest had brought the monster into their midst. But Father Romain assured them they were safe. They tied up La Gargouille, who offered no resistance, and Romain pronounced him guilty of many crimes. And as a punishment, he was to be burned at the stake. So all was prepared, and the dragon was set alight in front of the church. But when the fire had burned out, La Gargouille's head and neck remained. They weren't even scorched. The ashes from the monster's body were thrown in the river, and his neck and head were mounted on a new church as a reminder of the power of God. And when it rained, water once again poured out of the dragon's mouth. And some architect got the idea this would be a perfect way to keep rainwater from running down the sides of the church and damaging the masonry. So he carved similar dragon heads of stone and placed them all around the church. They were called Gargoyles, after Gargouille, the river monster conquered by Father Romain. And the gargoyle gut system spread all over France and all over the world. And this is how La Gargouille, who threatened to destroy the town of Rouen with water, came to protect church buildings all over France. So there you go. Isn't that unusual? Anybody heard that story before? I'd be amazed, surprised, but also equally delighted. And because you're such a knowledgeable lot. So again, let's just pan up. And here's a strange one here. Let's just try and get you a little bit of. So we've got here like a mason that is trying to climb out of his own work. So there really are some very, very strange ones indeed when we kind of go around. I've got some more pictures I'll kind of share with you. We've got over here a rather grotesque. So on zoom, it's hard for me to A, keep it still, and B, bring you in because it's always further. You see it right in the middle? Some form of beast with a long tail. So let's have a walk down. We'll go and see our next one. So yeah, got that zoom. Ew. This is probably, once you get on zoom, it's not easy to come back off. There we are. Okay, let me just take a drink. So the next one's not too far away from here. So what about the prisoner? Then it was almost the gargoyle's dinner. Well, he started a tradition too, actually, if you remember. So just as the priest promised, he was pardoned for his crime. And then to honour and remember the condemned prisoner who helped save the town, Rouen applied to the king for permission to free 1 condemned prisoner per year. It was granted, it was called the privilege of Saint Romain. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Every year, 36 days after Easter Sunday, just for the Day of Ascension, the church leaders will get together and start to interview prisoners and elicit testimony before choosing the convict to be pardoned. And then on Ascension morning, they would vote and then go and collect the lucky prisoner. So that's kind of nice, isn't it? It's a bit like the kind of story of Jesus, isn't it? Who failed to be spared, obviously. Now, it's quite surprising. Normally they put one here. In nicely 10H, that's fantastic. Yeah, normally they have one located here, but this time round, it's not. But there's not one far away down Bedern Hall. So the churchmen would decide who was going to be the beneficiary of their largesse, who was going to be freed in memory of the prisoner who faced down like a ghoul and saved Rouen. And there'd be a procession through the town in which the pardoned criminal carried the relics of Saint Romain. He'd apologise for his crime, promised never to do it again, and be given official papers confirming his pardon. And this pardoning tradition continued all the way up to the French Revolution. The plucky priest, by the way, who dared to face like a ghoul, later became Saint Romain, so his father Romain at that time, and he's recognised in paintings and sculptures by his ever-present gargoyle on a leash. Now, again, sorry, it's a bit wobbly, the gimbal there, apologies for that. Let me just find, I've got a picture of, here he is. So you look down there, you'll see he's carrying on a leash a gargoyle. So there are very, very many saints in the Catholic Church, very, very many, thousands of them. But generally speaking, one of the easiest ways you can get of working out who the hell you're looking at is what they are carrying, who they've got with them. And so the fact that if you ever see one of them that has got a gargoyle on a chain, and this, by the way, is from Rouen Cathedral Library. So obviously he's biggest in Rouen, as you might say. That's what you're looking at there. So there we go then. So there is a medieval representation of a gargoyle, and here is our contemporary 20th century one. So let's get rid of you. Oops. Come off there. And we're at Bedern Hall. Bedern, place of prayer. Anglo-Saxon word, meaning place of prayer, where bed comes from. Go to bed and say your prayers. So this one is the Keeper of Voices. How nice. So this is holding centuries of voices within the city, which is rather a noble thing to do, isn't it? Lovely this. So very, very sort of contemporary green, very much kind of dragon flavoured. So we're kind of really echoing the idea of a gargoule as really being a dragon serpent with this one. A red tongue, could use to brush his teeth, a little bit on the yellow side. Neighbours might not like it, Susan. They're pretty big as well. You know, you'd have to have a fairly sizable space for your gargoule. But this one's very colourful. I must say, I do like. He'd definitely be like the honey monster, wouldn't it, Tish? I think if you remember the honey monster. I think you wouldn't be very easy to share your breakfast cereal. I think we gobbled up the bowl as well, no doubt. Favourite is the one with the bats. Okay, yeah, that was number 2, I think, was it? One by the theatre that had the York by Night. So it's that cable is just causing me. I'd love to be able to do it without cable. It'd be awesome. Because cables and gimbals are not, they're strange bedfellows. Because gimbals like to be free, and of course cables tether them. And so that's not ideal. So no more detail on here, but unless I will just pan backwards. One of the dogs has decided to defend me from this. Yeah, I'd imagine that. We're at all surprised the dogs bark at that. There's nothing. Is there anything down there? I don't know what these. There's some more of these, but I don't know what they are. They're almost like sort of sweeties. I don't know what. Any ideas? I mean, there is no. Oh, could there be cocoa? Is it a chocolate thing? It could be sweeties. I wonder. Is it to do with cocoa pods and sweets and stuff? Because obviously we're not far away from the chocolate story, so could be some to do with that. Who knows? But anyway, there we go. You know, decide yourself. Really. I mean, there's no rights, there's kind of no wrongs on this. So yeah, so that's our foundation story of La Gargoule. That's kind of where it comes from, is the city of Rouen. And obviously it seems that kind of the Gargoule had the last laugh anyway, really, because every time it rains he gets to spit out water, which is basically all he wanted to do in the first place. But just less eating people, I suppose. There's a compromise there. He's given up on eating people, but instead, in perpetuity, he gets to spit rainwater at anybody he fancies. So that's maybe fair exchange, no robbery. So we'll head down to King's Square, where I believe the next one is located. Nice thing about York, of course, is it's all so close. That's what you should say, Ruben, if you're writing about York. is it's nice and flat, so whatever your mobility needs are, you usually get by here in York. Even if you need a scooter, most places the curbs are pretty low, it's manageable. So it's very, very accessible. Leslie's been, one or two others on them, I'm sure have been, and will kind of tell you that you know, what's so delightful is compared to most places you visit is how close everything is. So it is very, very easy to kind of get around, which is nice, of course. So obviously, we're talking. Well, I've been showing you images of York Minster, but you know, the gargoyles are omnipresent. You know, wherever you are, wherever you've got kind of medieval cathedrals, particularly Gothic cathedrals, you know, they're all covered with a multitude of these, and you know, they don't just represent animals. You've got kind of kings, priests, biblical figures, are kind of layered around doorways, standing in rows on facades. And the ancient stonemakers did their kind of best to make these statues resemble the person they represented. But for carvings inside and outside the church, it seems that the stone carvers had a lot of fun. And this is where kind of gargoyles and grotesques come in. I mean, I'm just going to bring up some images here from York. Let's do this. Where's that one? This is all these images I'm showing you are York Minster. But there's just a tremendous, you know, sort of sense of fun really within them. So gargoyles and grotesques are kind of used interchangeably, but actually they've got some separate meanings. They both take on the form of unusual, funny, even scary faces. They can be both human or animal or a combination. But it's kind of really easy to tell the difference. Gargoyles serve a purpose. They basically, you know, form guttering and designed to keep the water away. So they usually some kind of elongated figure which extends from the building and has an opening for water to escape, usually from the creature's mouth. Grotesques, basically, these are grotesques you're looking at here, are any sculpture which is an exaggerated form of a person or a creature, and it doesn't carry water, so consequently it doesn't need to be elongated, so they're often kind of a lot flatter looking, but it gives them a lot more scope to be completely outrageous because you're not having to design it in this kind of form that really is a drain pipe, really. So consequently, they can be any size or shape, which means that often they are very, very elaborate. But they're often incredibly hard to see because they're usually very small and they're right up at the top of buildings because stonemasons knew full well that they could only design them in the way they did. I'm going to show you some in a minute because people were never going to see them. But before we do that, let us have a look at the next one, which is over here. Let's have a sip of water while we do. So it's a very colourful one. In fact, this may be the most colourful one that we've seen to date. And I think this is something to do with health, this one. Oh, gimbal's gone again, so we'll just have to redo the gimbal. And then we'll do it. It is being annoying today. But we will prevail. It's this cable. Right, here we go. So, this is the Many Hands City Guardian, this is known, and it is the keeper of care, compassion and connection of the city, and the artist of the York and Scarborough Hospitals charity. So I'd imagine that there'll be a number of individuals pretty involved in the design and perhaps production of this one. So we've got over here, we've got laughter, we've got community. It is the gargoyles. Communication, communicate. We've got about being safe, love, night and day. We've got care. We've got a kind of range, support, talking. Let's kind of pan back because obviously there's a hell of a lot going on with this one, and it does allow you to take it in because and also hands as well. So looking after one another, taking care. It's nice, isn't it, Ron? I mean, obviously it's a nice idea, really. It's about kind of human compassion and support, and no one's alone. Everybody's got somebody that'll be interested, somebody will listen to them, somebody will kind of take care. So it's a very, very nice kindness is over there on his wing as well. So I think, you know, there's a very, very nice kind of message coming off this one. Very, very kind of busy, as you might say. You have a heavily tattooed, perhaps, gargoyle. But caring gargoyle, yes. He's much less likely to gobble you up than to maybe give you a nuzzling cuddle. He'd be a very supportive kind of gargoyle, I think. So I like this one. It's kind of nice. It's definitely got a lot going for it in its colour. So there we go. Just pan back from that, and we'll walk on. So there's another one in the food court around the corner. So we're getting through this. What time are we on? We're on 17:38, so about 20 minutes ago. So let's see how many more we can squeeze in to that time period. So let me know, which should be your favourite so far? So Cynthia is saying that's her favourite so far, so do let me know. So let's just quickly scan back what we've seen. So we saw the pink, green and red one with its lovely design motif in the library, didn't we? We saw the one at the theatre, which is the one with the Minster, the nighttime one at the Minster. We saw the, what else was it? We saw the, obviously that one. We saw the stained glass one outside the Minster, which is lovely. I really like the stained glass one. Which other ones have we seen? I can't remember. Caring Gargoyles is your favourite so far, says Tish. So that's good. There's another one, isn't there? We've seen, what else have we seen? Oh, the Bedern one, the green one that we saw a minute ago with potentially sweeties on it. We're not quite sure exactly what was on it. So we've seen about five so far, maybe? I'm not entirely sure. Haven't been counting. But we're all right, aren't we? We've seen enough, I think, to give us a decision. So let's go down and find our next one, and we'll talk a bit more about guys. I've got my map here, so I don't know exactly where they all are, but let me just have a little sample on that. Caring Gargoyles, your favourite. That's great, fantastic. And there's one in here somewhere, I believe. So yeah, there should be one in the Shambles Market food court. So let's have a look what we've got. And where is this? I don't know exactly where. Ah, here it is. Oh, this one's fun. So, this is the merchant keeper, the overseer of the Shambles Market. So, it used to be called Newgate Market, but for reasons, I guess, of bringing people in for tourists, now call it Shambles Market. And somewhat annoying, some sort of sticker on there, which is rather annoying. But putting that to one side, it's almost like a very griffin coloured, this one. Griffin's obviously a very kind of motif of years gone by, classical illusions. So we've got time on here, we've got windows, we've got leaves. So is this about a passage of time? We've got a splendid cat look across the bottom, which is lovely. Oh, look at that, it's Shambles by night. Isn't that fantastic? So this is somebody who's keeping, the black cat is keeping everybody safe. So I think this is definitely rapidly going up in my list of favourites. We've got the merchant barrel there. I think this one might be my favourite thus far. And we've got music as well, look. We've presumably representing the buskers. We've got somebody playing a cello there, I think. And a saxophone. What have we got around the back? Let's have a look. Oh, more. Ah, here we are, look. So we've now got a depiction of the marketplace. Gimbal really is playing. So Pick Your Broom is just behind us. Isn't that wonderful? Love that. I think I've lost the gimbal again. So we'll just come out of here. And it's beautiful, isn't it? I love it, Janie. It's absolutely delightful. I think this might be my favourite so far, actually. I'm just going to pan back one more time. Yeah, I think that's. I think so far for me, that's a winner. So I don't know what's going on with this gimbal today, but it is not behaving itself. So we'll do 1/3 reset. So apologies for. They very are. What's the word I'm looking for? They can be very hit and miss gimbals. They can be brilliant all tour, and then you get the odd tour like today where they're just a pain in the arse from beginning to end. For no obvious reason. You're not doing anything differently. Just sometimes they just decide they're having an off day. And Leslie loves that one too. There we go. Who knows why it is? But as someone suggested, maybe it is those naughty gargoyles. But I think there's something in the balance of this one that this cable is throwing out. So the market should be down. So I'm just going to get out of here so we don't get run over. And we'll be out of their way. Out of the way of the workers. And we'll head up St Helens Square. So yeah, so obviously we've got Grotesques we're talking about now, weren't we? And obviously they're a long kind of way out. So you need usually a high zoom camera or binoculars to spot them. So what was their kind of purpose? Well, we know obviously for the gargoyles, the water carriers, it was about preservation of the building materials. What was the reason for the grotesques? Well, it's a bit of a mystery. Some people think they were meant to teach biblical lessons at a time many didn't read. Others thought they were there to ward off spirits. That's so loud, that alarm. But in truth, no one really knows for sure. The stonemason didn't leave any clues, and neither is any mention of them in church records. So could they just be for decoration? Interestingly, in the Middle Ages, they were known as babwins in certain records. And that gargoyles and grotesques were called babwin from an Italian word meaning babuino, which means baboon. So perhaps some of them might resemble baboons. But I tend to think it's more about the stonemasons doing their monkeying around. And the Masons of York Minster have been keen to keep that tradition. So we've got a baboon on York Minster. So let me bring it up for you. Here we go. So all these pictures I'm showing you are from York. So depictions of humans in gargoyle and grotesque figures were kind of later developments from the animalistic and beastly examples that once kind of were more like sort of familiar with. But it's almost kind of natural progression, I guess, in subject matter for the statues to portray people. So human gargoyles, or more often grotesques really, were often comedic and depicted in bawdy positions, some leaning over a ledge they're perched on to vomit or to defecate off. So we've got a vomiting knight on here. I'll bring you up. You just see and find our good Sir Knight. There we go. Oh Christ, the gimbal's gone. That's the fourth time. This is getting ridiculous. I may have to just go on to manual if this continues like this. But I appreciate it's not pleasant to watch with it juddering around, so I just don't know why it's being such a pain today. But we'll go down there and we'll reset. So you can see there that the knight is vomiting, something he's eaten, hasn't agreed with him. Someone is defecating. We haven't got one of those at York Minster. We do, though, have... Let me just do this gimbal one more time. And if not, we'll then just go to handheld. Well, we'll go handheld. We'll go on to a fixed, like a selfie stick, if this doesn't work. Because it's getting ridiculous that we're having to mess about like this. So my sincere apologies, because you deserve better than this. And I want to give you better than this, but right now, my tech is just not behaving. So let's get rid of this chap. So yeah, there is one. Let me just try to find you this one, then we'll... it really is, it's not for the faint-hearted, this one. It's not very nice. So I don't know how much you can see on there, but inside the dragon's mouth, if you think you can see, it is what you think you can see. In all its glory. I have no words really for what they're trying to say with that. As you can see, that was done with a very high-powered zoom camera to get that detail in. And if you were going to depict somebody in a pose such as that, you'd have to be very, very clear and very certain that it wasn't going to be seen by the Minster officials. It's hard to believe that anybody would have signed off on that particular image. So there you go. It is fairly strong, isn't it? So we've reached another of the gargoyles. So I'll take that off. So apologies if that's put any of you off your food, but that's on a church. Yes, that's on York. So here we go. So we've now got a Yorkshire rose at the back. We've got a lot of colour going on. Oh, a lot of naughty. Oh gosh, yeah. What's happened? The thing was that the portraying sin was to remind people to behave, because everybody sinned. It was just a case of what you had to do as your penance for sin. I mean, the church couldn't survive without sin. I mean, that's where it got its income from. So, you know, having a sort of slightly light-hearted view of sin, whilst at the same time saying if you didn't get it sorted, if you didn't do penance, you know, you'd be punished eternally and be damned and all this, that and the other. But there was a healthy ecology of sin. I mean, the church was involved in running brothels. Not in York necessarily, but it was very common for bishops to be taking money from brothels on the basis that, you know, kind of without temptation, you know, what good is it being a Christian? So, you know, if there's no temptation to push against, then consequently, it's not easy being a Christian. So that was the view. Hello, Knight. So this one is, and the gimbal's gone again. Throw this gimbal in the bin, I'm afraid. The We're in it together City Guardian, keeper of the city's heart, watching over every corner. So there we go. Yeah, I've absolutely no idea what the Gargoyle gimbals are up to today, but they've certainly are trying my patience royally. Let's just see if I can get something. I may just try and hold this now. And see, we're going to have one more go, and then if we can't do it, I'm just going to give up and move over onto a handheld setup. In fact, do you know what? No, I can't. Because I can't. The trouble is, I can't do a handheld setup with this. I've got a wrong clip with me. So one more go, and if not, we're just going to give up because we're nearly on the hour anyway. And there's only, I think, 3 more that I was going to show you. So, but the problem is if I unplug this cable, which is what I want to do, it terminates the live stream, which we've had before. So there you go. Right, God knows what that's all about. So yeah, so we've got some really kind of dodgy ones, which I'll kind of show you in a minute. When we stop, I'll kind of show you all the ones, because I think it's every time I'm basically pulling across the screen, it's gone very, very sensitive. So there's also kind of social sins and women reading, which is a disgrace really, and was portrayed because they didn't really want women to think for themselves, certainly. So women reading was portrayed as the sin, the sin of knowledge, the sin of not thinking that Christian knowledge was enough, that you wanted more knowledge, was the path to. Obviously, that's Eve being portrayed, isn't it? Yeah, think about it. Is the desire, the tree of knowledge, really? It's this desire to know more than you're told that you need to know. So often you got these grotesques where people, women, and they were reading, or they were getting up to all sorts of thinking for themselves kind of activities. So, if the kind of the original idea of these grotesques really was to terrify you, it seems that when we look at a lot of the later ones, really, they're much more likely about making you want to laugh, really. They're kind of sarcastic. And it may be that these are kind of implicit criticisms of churchgoers, or it may be that the carvers are sort of personifying their own shortcomings. We'll never know, but you've got some really, really strange ones. York Racers, yeah, York Racers on today. I think it's ladies. I think this is why we've got a number of the young ladies are dressed. But of course, the races haven't really. Well, have they finished? The last race probably just finished 20 minutes ago, so they obviously weren't there for it. So you get a lot of people just like the dressing up, really, and after a few races, they've had enough, and they want to come and walk around York rather than spend too much time in the company of racing folk. But there we are. So we've got one just down here, so we might make this the last. Or we'll go, if we make it to the station, we will. But it's more this. I'm conscious that the gimbal, the Gargoyle gimbal, is becoming a pest that is probably interrupting your enjoyment, which I do apologise for. But there we go. Some things are out of our hands, and technology is one of them. But it makes you tempted to sort of sit with a tripod and do a completely static tour. We'd have to walk, and then we get it all set up, and it would be good to go. But that wouldn't be much fun for you. So yes, so most of these very outrageous ones, I'm going to show you a few in a minute, are kind of tucked away right on the kind of upper levels where sort of no humans would ever reach. And the only reason that a lot of these have been discovered, of course, is through renovation projects, where people are going up to inspect the damage, and suddenly they find something they'd never kind of seen before. So this was, we find some interesting ones. So this is a kind of strange one. It's up on the Minster. Yeah. A woman, sort of a horse-like woman. As you can see, she's got a. Is it a man? Is it a gargoyle? underneath, is she giving birth? I mean, it's very difficult to kind of know with any great certainty what is going on there. But again, it's a fairly fresh design, as you might say. I'm not sort of thing you necessarily expect to find adorning one of the most famous cathedrals in the world, but I can assure you that is a picture that's taken on York Minster. And let's get rid of you. Bring up another one. What else have we got?
Think, like, oh, could it have been different? Like, do you know what
This was quite nice. It's not really in the offensive line, but just a lovely old tired lady that looks very, very kind of careworn after a life of hard graft. It looks to me aching back, and arthritis kicking in. So again, it just would seem that, you know, over the years, if anything really kind of goes, no one's going to see them. Doesn't much matter really what it depicts. Just kind of have fun with it, really. She's not, as you can see, she's purely grotesque. You can see there's no water spout from her. So, you know, she's just been put up there, you know, as a purely decorative item. Let me find another one for you. Get rid of you. Have we had this one? Oh, we've had the sticky night, haven't we? Who else have we got? We've had you. Yeah, so there's a strange one up. So you've got basically a man there with his breeches down, kind of appearing to be giving birth to another man out of his backside. So, you know, as I say, this is a sort of fairly ribald kind of form of entertainment that you're getting. Yeah, I think we're going to make this one the last one here because it's just doing my head in now, this gimbal. And we're nearly on 6 o'clock anyway. So I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll just come off the gimbal, hold this so it's not shuddering, and I'll show you a couple more pictures, but we'll just we'll walk up to the what do we call it first? Well, I'm going to have got our last of the, so get rid of you. It's a handheld now, but just getting sick of this gimbal. It's just doing me head in. It's going in the bin, I think, of this tool. I just wrote with the old lady, did you? Oh, I'm sorry. So sorry it's shaky cam, but we're going to be there in a second, then we'll finish off. I'll show you the rest of the pictures that I haven't shown you as yet, and it will be on the hour then, so. See ya, damn gimbal. Behaved beautifully last week. Don't know what's happened this week. Just goes to show. It's obviously the gimbals, the gargoyles, as people have said. This play merry havoc. But this one I like. This one, it's a good one to finish on, actually, because this is the one that's a guardian of the rivers, which of course is a big issue right now, keeping people safe in the water, particularly these hot months, people jumping in the water and then getting overwhelmed. So this is the river watcher, and appropriately sort of algaed on the top, and halfway down the water. Now I wonder if it should have been water up to the top, but of course it's the drought weather. So we've got wonderful fish. Is it a perch? I think. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Natalie. It's just frustrating, you know, when you are tech troubled, but other than subject matter is it's kind of held its way. Did be like that chocolate. So there we go. So I think we've seen about, was it 7, 8, 9? So let me know which is your favourite of the sculptures that you've seen today, and in the meantime, I will share with you some of the pictures that we haven't seen so far. Oh, these, by the way, are some new ones. So in case you wonder how they're kind of made now, is on the south aisle roof, they do some new ones. So these are pictures from the York Minster website. So you can see there's a kind of clay version and then a carved version. So they make like a maquette out of clay first, and then kind of carve them in stone. So they're all done. There's no kind of 3D printing or anything like that going on. They're all sort of genuine. So that's this is King Athelstan. That's right. But at the moment he's just can't get that on. There's a cheerful fellow. He's like the north wind blowing, isn't he? I like him. He's good fun. Shambles is good, yeah. I enjoyed that one too. That's somebody looking rather in pain and sort of pushing an awful lot, holding some kind of document, but definitely with the look of anguish. So whether they're trying to pass a rather large movement, I don't know, but looks rather anguished, but is notably squatting at the same time. So don't know what that was all about, but probably not good. What a wonderful face that is. So again, it's just a sort of sheer joy really to be able to sort of bring these images that are, you know, just normally out of sight. But say somebody with they're not my photos, by the way, just to say. But what else have we got? What else haven't we seen? Oh, wait, we haven't seen him, have we? So there's a man pulling a moonie on the side of the Minster. So again, Shambles my favourite as well. Yeah, the brown one, I thought the Shambles one with the black cat. I thought that was great. I really like that one. That was that really sort of floated my boat too. What else have we got? Have we seen that one? Again, it's a strange one. You've got some kind of animal there, but if you look at the bottom, it's got a baby that appears to be suckling at the breast of this rather strange animal. So, I didn't even know you're on. There's just a lot of oddities, really. You know, this was a good one. The Plague Doctor, obviously from the 17th century plague rather than the kind of Black Death. He's on the near the east window, looking across at the plague house. So that's a more modern one. But love that. I think that's absolutely fabulous. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Natalie. Sorry about the gimbal problems. It's been an absolute menace throughout, but there's nothing I can do about that. So I think we will call it a day. Thank you everybody who's joined me. Thank you everybody who's tipped. It's most appreciated. Thank you for KCM who sent me a kind little gift last night. Thank you for that. Thank you everything for all you do. Sorry about the gimbal. I'll look into it and hopefully we'll be out and about next week, back using the power of satellite, and we'll go somewhere in the great outdoors thing. So from York, let me just turn it around and get rid of you. There we go. Yes, cool near the Plague Doctor. So we are opposite the Guildhall by the river in York. Thank you everybody for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. Bye bye.